The millionaire discovers shocking secret in the barn, and the female beggar's life changes forever. Caleb's world was silence, the kind of quiet that wraps around a man like thick fog, pushing out everything and everyone. His sprawling farm was miles from the nearest neighbor, an island of fields, a mansion, and a barn he rarely entered. Most folks whispered about him as the reclusive millionaire with a heart as cold as the winter wind that whipped his land. Nobody dared disturb him, and he didn't want to be found. That night, the sky cracked wide open. Thunder boomed louder than a gunshot, lightning slashing across the dark like jagged knives. Caleb was in the barn, checking on the old tractor, when a faint rustle stopped him cold. Clothes rustling, soft whimpers, muffled footsteps. He froze. Who the hell could be hiding here? His heart thudded. With cautious steps, he edged toward the shadowed corner, and there she was, Lily. Dirty, trembling, eyes wide and wild with fear. Crow. Two little kids huddled close, mud-smeared faces clutching tattered blankets like lifelines. The storm outside drowned all sounds but her shallow breaths, quick and ragged like a frightened animal's. Caleb's first instinct told him to call the cops, turn and lock the barn door, but something inside clenched and burned. The raw fear in her eyes froze him. This wasn't just a stray vagrant sneaking around. It was desperation, pure bone-deep terror. "Who are you?" he croaked, voice rough. She hesitated. The youngest started to whimper, tiny hands reaching out. The moment hung heavy. The storm's fury outside, the silence between strangers inside. Then, Lily whispered, "I'm running. From him." Caleb's breath caught. A surge of old wounds stirred, memories buried under years of lonely snow. He saw more than a scared woman. He saw survival, battered and fragile. The barn creaked as rain hammered the roof, sheets of water blurring the windows. Caleb made a sudden decision, a rare one. "You stay here tonight. I won't let the storm get to you." Her eyes flickered with disbelief, then a glimmer of hope. They settled into uneasy quiet. Caleb watched as Lily rocked the kids gently, trying to hush their fears. Her hands trembled so hard he thought they might snap. She told him pieces of her story, a nightmare with the name Hugo, the bruises, the threats, the twisted lies. Caleb clutched his jaw. He wasn't just some rich hermit ignoring the world anymore. He was a shield now. Then came the knock. Sharp, sudden, rattling the old wood door like a gunshot. Caleb's chest tightened. His fists clenched, muscles coiled like a spring. The knock was not just a visitor. It was a storm inside itself. Hugo's shadow. Lily froze. The children gasped, clutching her skirts. Outside, the thunder rolled like a war drum. Caleb's mind raced. He knew this was it. They couldn't run anymore. Decisions had to be made, fast and fierce. Safety wasn't enough. They had to fight. The barn felt smaller, darker. The storm pounding around them was nothing compared to what was about to crash inside. Who was on the other side of that door? Friend? Foe? Or worse, a man demanding back what wasn't his to take? The night had only just begun. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss out on any exclusive content coming your way. And while you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know all the amazing people who are part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Caleb's chest felt like it was caving in. The knock echoed again, harder, desperate. Calmer than he felt, He glanced at Lily. Fear flickered in her eyes, mirroring his own heart's chaos. He stepped closer, positioning himself between her and the door, every instinct screaming at him to protect them. He could feel the children trembling against him, their small bodies like fragile tuning forks, vibrating with dread. "Stay back," he ordered quietly, but it came out harsher than he meant. Another knock. This one held a threat, a voice breaking through the storm, rough and jagged. "Lily, I know you're in there. You can't run forever." Caleb's blood turned to ice. That voice, it shook something deep within him. Hugo. He didn't know much about the man, just whispers of violence, a shadow that stretched long and dark. He swallowed, the lump in his throat almost choking him. What he didn't expect was the way it stirred memories he had buried, memories he thought kept locked away. "No one is here," Lily shouted back, though her voice trembled. She pressed the children closer to her, shaking, as if trying to blend into their innocence. But she wasn't fooling Caleb. Something was deeply wrong. What if she hadn't just been running from a monster? Suddenly, without warning, the barn door creaked open. The wind roared, almost as if inviting forgotten demons inside. Hugo stepped in, a silhouette against the chaos. Wind-blown hair and anger layered on his face. Caleb's instincts flared. Fight or flight. "Get away from her," Caleb growled, stepping forward, chest puffed up like a bull trying to defend its territory. But as Caleb clashed with Hugo's furious eyes, something in the air shifted. The world outside dulled. Everything felt suspended, like breath held underwater. And just like that, another voice pierced the silence. "Dad!" a small voice called from behind Hugo. The gasp fell heavy in the barn, an anchor tethering Caleb's heart. "Please, just let Mom go!" Two small figures emerged from the shadows, filthy but unmistakably familiar. Caleb's own children, Mia and Ryan. The truth hit him like a freight train, shattering everything he believed he was protecting. Hugo turned, a twisted smile breaking across his face. "Look what I found. Family reunion." His tone was mocking, but a dark thrill pulsed beneath. Memory crashed into Caleb. The missed birthdays, the empty spaces where laughter should have been, the heart-wrenching ache of their absence. He thought he was free, thought he could protect Lily and those innocent kids, but now they were all tangled in this nightmare. "Dad," Mia whispered, looking at him with wide, scared eyes full of desperation. The barn tightened around him. Caleb felt the walls close in, caught between two worlds, where his heart lay shattered and the storm of angry men and desperate mothers swirled violently. "Caleb?" Lily's voice was shaky, confusion mingling with fear. "You knew?" He felt exposed, stripped down to raw truth. This isn't what it looks like," he stammered, his world crumbling. His mind raced. What had he done? Who had he hidden? The truths were like knives slicing deeper, secrets laying bare. As thunder boomed overhead, light flashed, illuminating their faces. The chaos around them seemed like a pause, yet inside him it roared. There he stood, an island swallowed by the storm. In that heartbeat, he realized things were never going back. Secrets had a way of unraveling even the strongest threads. "Caleb!" Lily's plea cut through him, a tether he couldn't afford to let go. But what could be salvaged? Would they all break apart like glass? Or could they fight together? The night wound tighter around them, and Caleb stood at the edge of everything he thought he knew, ready to face the storm. Caleb felt the weight of the world crashing down on him. The storm screamed outside, clashing violently with the fear that wrapped tight around them. Lily's terrified gaze pierced him, begging for answers he didn't have. His children, Mia and Ryan, stood behind Hugo, their innocence dragged into this nightmare. "Dad!" Mia cried again, this time stronger, hope flickering in her wide eyes. She reached out, desperate. Caleb's heart twisted. Mia, stay back. But he couldn't move. The sight of her made everything inside him ache. He wanted to reach out, to gather them all and shield them from the storm in every possible way. Yet here he was, caught in a tangle of decisions that could unravel them all. Hugo stepped further into the barn, filling the space with his dark presence. You've got a strong will, Lily. But it's time to face facts. You can't escape me. He turned, mocking Caleb with a twisted grin. And look at you, playing house with the new family, huh? Caleb's fists clenched. He could feel adrenaline surging, warming the cold ice of fear that had settled over him. He needed to keep this man from unraveling everything. But then, something flickered in Hugo's eyes. Was it anger or something deeper? Don't, Caleb shouted, stepping forward. That's when the barn door slammed shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. They all jumped, and a flash of lightning outlined an unfamiliar figure standing at the entrance, silhouetted against the chaos. Caleb! The voice was sharp, echoing familiarity that hit him in the gut. It was his brother, Ethan. His eyes widened in disbelief. Ethan? What the hell is happening here? Ethan's voice held authority, demanding answers. They'd been separated for years, over old family feuds. But above the noise, raw tension surged. Ethan matched Caleb's stance, eyes flickering nervously over the scene, the children, Lily, Hugo. And then the realization hit Caleb like a hammer. Why are you here? Caleb's voice trembled. Without warning, Ethan lunged forward, eyes darting towards the kids, then locking onto Caleb's, filled with an emotion Caleb hadn't expected to see. Because I saw them, Caleb. They need help. They're in danger. What do you mean? Caleb took a step back, heart racing. Lily, she's not who you think she is. Time froze. The air thickened around them. What do you mean? Caleb pressed, confusion flooding his veins. Ethan's next words landed like a bomb. She's connected to this whole mess. She's not just a victim, Caleb. There are layers, secrets you don't know. No! It didn't feel like before. Every ounce of reality shifted, tilting. Lily's expression twisted. Hurt, anger. The unmasking threatened to tear them apart. Caleb's breath caught. What? No! Lily shouted, eyes wild, desperation clawing at her voice. You don't understand, Before she could finish, thunder roared again. Outside, the storm exploded, drowning out her words. Lightning illuminated the barn, revealing expressions of confusion, fear, betrayal. Caleb staggered back, hands raised. Willie, tell me the truth! She hesitated. The moment stretched, heavy and breathless. And then the barn door burst open again. The wind howled, and a figure emerged, strong and defiant. It was Caleb's father, Robert. Ethan, what are you doing here? A sickening realization crashed over Caleb. Everything spiraled. He stumbled as the pieces of the puzzle spun chaotically, threatening to rip holes in the very fabric of their lives. The lineage of truth was about to unravel, teetering on the edge of calamity. Caleb stood at the precipice, heart pounding, unsure of who he was anymore. Dad, what the hell is going on? In that breathless second, everything shifted. Secrets uncoiled. And Caleb was left grasping at shadows. Would their lives ever be the same? Would he even recognize the people he loved? The storm raged on, and so did the confusion. Caleb's heart thundered in his chest, the chaos of emotions swirling wildly, battling for space inside him. His father, Robert, stormed into the barn, eyes fierce, demanding answers. Ethan, what are you doing here? Dad, we need to talk. Ethan's voice rang through the chaos, urgency threading in his words. He shot a glance at Lily, whose eyes were wide with fear, as if the very ground beneath her was eroding. Caleb swallowed hard. The storm pounding outside felt like a reflection of the tempest brewing in his soul. "What's going on? Someone tell me." His voice cracked, desperation creeping into every letter. But before anyone could respond, a screech pierced the air. Metal scraping on metal echoed just outside. A beat of silence. Then the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, growing closer. "Lily!" Hugo's voice was a hiss, venom oozing from his lips. "You can't hide forever." Caleb clenched his fists, adrenaline electrifying his muscles. He locked eyes with Hugo, masking the fear pooling inside him. "Get out of here!" As if summoned by the storm itself, dark shadows filled the doorway, figures illuminated by flashes of lightning. Caleb's breath caught. Other men loomed behind Hugo, faces twisted with malice, hungry for blood. "Help!" Lily cried, panic cracking through her fragile facade. The kids pressed against her, their wide eyes full of fear. Caleb felt his heart plummet deeper, weightlessness hovering around disbelief. But then something strange happened. At that moment, as the barn seemed to breathe in their tension, a loud crash echoed from behind the group. It tore through the rain, drawing everyone's attention. The barn door, already battered by the storm, burst open with a force that knocked the men back. In that chaotic instant, as the rain flooded in, a figure strode forward. A woman, drenched, hair plastered to her face. The storm brought new energy, wild and unexpected. "What's wrong? You're all making a scene." It was Caleb's mother, Sarah. Only she had been gone for years. The rush of emotions was suffocating. Caleb's mind spun. How could this be? She came back, just as everything was shattering. "What are you doing here?" Caleb barely managed to whisper, shock coursing through him like an electric surge. His mother's eyes flickered past him, landing on Lily with a look that screamed familiarity. "Take your filthy hands off her," Sarah shouted, venom cutting through her words as she pointed at Hugo. Confusion twisted in Caleb's gut. "I know why you're back." Hugo's laughter broke the tension, a rasping sound that filled the barn and twisted everything inside. "So, the lost sheep returns to the fold. Did you bring the drama too?" Caleb's mind reeled. What secret could Sarah be tangled in? "Shut up!" Caleb yelled, overwhelmed by the emotions barreling through him. "You don't get to do this." But tension gripped the air tighter. The very foundation of their lives quaked. Sarah glared at Caleb. "You don't understand. This has been a long time coming. We didn't leave to abandon." Before she could finish, one of the men from behind Hugo stepped forward, hand gripping a horrifying weapon. "Enough of this nonsense," he growled, shattering the fragile moment. Caleb's world narrowed, heart racing. "Get back!" He instinctively moved in front of Lily and the kids, shielding them with his body, breath shallow. And then the unspeakable happened. Sarah let out a low scream. In one swift motion, she revealed a glint of metal, an unexpected knife glistening in her palm. "You don't have to go through me." Time froze. Caleb's mind screamed in confusion. "Mom? What are you doing?" Hugo's grin faltered, eyes narrowing with danger. "You could have been the hero, but no, now you're just another pawn." The air thickened with tension, everything hanging in the balance. And Caleb stood there, heart pounding louder than the storm outside, drowning in a sea of questions that threatened to consume him. What had he missed? What lies were woven into this chaos? He felt the ground shift beneath him, reality too fragile to grasp, ready to shatter at any moment. In that instant, he knew their lives would never be the same again. The storm of revelations had truly begun. Caleb's heart thundered in his chest, the chaos of emotions swirling wildly, battling for space inside him. His father, Robert, stormed into the barn, eyes fierce, demanding answers. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "Dad, we need to talk." Ethan's voice rang through the chaos, urgency threading in his words. He shot a glance at Lily, whose eyes were wide with fear, as if the very ground beneath her was eroding. Caleb swallowed hard. The storm pounding outside felt like a reflection of the tempest brewing in his soul. "What's going on? Someone tell me!" His voice cracked, desperation creeping into every letter. But before anyone could respond, a screech pierced the air. Metal scraping on metal echoed just outside. A beat of silence, then the unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, growing closer. "Lily!" Hugo's voice was a hiss, venom oozing from his lips. "You can't hide forever." Caleb clenched his fists, adrenaline electrifying his muscles. He locked eyes with Hugo, masking the fear pooling inside him. "Get out of here!" As if summoned by the storm itself, dark shadows filled the doorway, figures illuminated by flashes of lightning. Caleb's breath caught. Other men loomed behind Hugo, faces twisted with malice, hungry for blood. "Help!" Lily cried, panic cracking through her fragile facade. The kids pressed against her, their wide eyes full of fear. Caleb felt his heart plummet deeper, weightlessness hovering around disbelief. But then something strange happened. At that moment, as the barn seemed to breathe in their tension, a loud crash echoed from behind the group. It tore through the rain, drawing everyone's attention. The barn door, already battered by the storm, burst open with a force that knocked the men back. In that chaotic instant, as the rain flooded in, a figure strode forward. A woman, drenched, hair plastered to her face. The storm brought new energy, wild and unexpected. "What's wrong? You're all making a scene." It was Caleb's mother, Sarah. Only she had been gone for years. The rush of emotions was suffocating. Caleb's mind spun. How could this be? She came back, just as everything was shattering. "What are you doing here?" Caleb barely managed to whisper, shock coursing through him like an electric surge. His mother's eyes flickered past him, landing on Lily with a look that screamed familiarity. "Take your filthy hands off her," Sarah shouted, venom cutting through her words as she pointed at Hugo. Confusion twisted in Caleb's gut. "I know why you're back." Hugo's laughter broke the tension, a rasping sound that filled the barn and twisted everything inside. "So the lost sheep returns to the fold. Did you bring the drama too?" Caleb's mind reeled. What secret could Sarah be tangled in? "Shut up!" Caleb yelled, overwhelmed by the emotions barreling through him. "You don't get to do this." But tension gripped the air tighter. The very foundation of their lives quaked. Sarah glared at Caleb. "You don't understand. This has been a long time coming. We didn't leave to abandon." Before she could finish, one of the men from behind Hugo stepped forward, hand gripping a horrifying weapon. "Enough of this nonsense," he growled, shattering the fragile moment. Caleb's world narrowed, heart racing. "Get back!" He instinctively moved in front of Lily and the kids, shielding them with his body. Breath shallow. And then the unspeakable happened. Sarah let out a low scream. In one swift motion, she revealed a glint of metal, an unexpected knife glistening in her palm. "You don't have to go through me." Time froze. Caleb's mind screamed in confusion. "Mom, what are you doing?" Hugo's grin faltered, eyes narrowing with danger. "You could have been the hero, but no, now you're just another pawn." The air thickened with tension, everything hanging in the balance. And Caleb stood there, heart pounding louder than the storm outside, drowning in a sea of questions that threatened to consume him. What had he missed? What lies were woven into this chaos? He felt the ground shift beneath him, reality too fragile to grasp, ready to shatter at any moment. "Mom!" Mia's voice rang out, coded in a young girl's raw shock. "What are you doing?" But it was Robert who stepped forward, his face pale, his tone dangerously calm. "Put the knife down, Sarah. This isn't what it looks like." A collective gasp filled the barn. Caleb's heart raced with a mix of fear and confusion. What wasn't it? What had been glossed over for years? "Just tell me the truth." Caleb's voice cracked. Suddenly the lights flickered as lightning struck nearby, illuminating a vision that sent chills down their spines. Sarah's face twisted into an expression Caleb had never seen before, a mix of fury and despair. "I thought it was too late to protect you, Caleb. I'm sorry." Before she could continue, her hand moved. A flash of silver, a shriek echoed across the dim barn, piercing the air like glass shattering. Caleb's breath hitched as the knife flew, not toward Hugo, but straight into Ethan's side. Time stood still. "Ethan!" Caleb howled, staring as his brother's body crumpled to the ground, confusion mingling with horror. The collective shock blanketed the air, freezing them all in place. Questions slammed inside Caleb's head like a freight train. What had just happened? Who was the true villain here? Caleb reached for Ethan, but a solid grip latched onto his shoulder. Hugo's voice edged with triumph. "Now you see." Caleb's world shattered, falling into a chasm of unspoken betrayals and unanswered questions. What was the truth? What had been concealed beneath layers of lies? As the storm raged on outside, a new kind of tempest brewed in the barn, one that threatened to engulf them all. The night had only just begun, and Caleb stood at the brink of a darkness he had not anticipated. Caleb's world crumbled as he knelt beside Ethan. His brother's body sprawled on the barn floor, shock painted across the faces around him. Heart pounding, he felt time slow, every breath echoing like a drum in his ears. "Ethan, no." His voice cracked, raw with panic as he hovered over his brother, cradling the wound. The knife had sunk deep, crimson spilling across the ground like spilled secrets. "Get away from him," Hugo barked, shoving Sarah back with a force that sent her stumbling. The tension in the air tightened, vibrating with each heart-wrenching moment. Caleb's focus flickered between Ethan's pale face and the chaos swirling around him. Mia's terrified face swam in his vision. "Daddy, what's happening?" Her voice was small, trembling against the storm's roar. Caleb felt the world tilt. "Protect them!" A desperate whisper echoed in his mind. Instinct took over as he rose on shaky legs, putting himself in front of Lily and the kids. They needed a shield against Hugo's laughter. That mocking tone sent chills down his spine. But then, everything went dark. The lights flickered wildly, before going out, plunging the barn into shadows. A surge of panic washed over him. "Ethan, stay with me." Caleb's voice was hoarse, desperate. A flick of movement caught his eye. Hugo advancing like a predator. "The show isn't over yet, millionaire," he growled, eyes gleaming with malice. But just as he stepped closer, a blinding flash of lightning illuminated the barn for a split second. And then it happened. A loud crash echoed, more powerful than anything before, and the entire side of the barn shattered inward. Wooden beams splintered, scattering debris everywhere. Caleb fell to the ground, shielding Lily and the kids with his body. A figure emerged from the wreckage, barely seen against the chaos, moving with unearthly speed. It was a man, tall, cloaked, sunken cheeks shadowed by the hood he wore. The air shifted as he stepped into view, revealing a familiar face, but aged, haunted, as if the years had carved every line with a knife. "Caleb," he rasped, voice deep and ragged. "It's time you knew. I'm here to correct the past." Caleb's heart stopped, breath hitching. It was his mother's father, the grandfather he had long believed dead. The family lore said he'd been taken by darkness, vanished years ago. Grandpa? How? Stop! He raised a hand, silencing Caleb's questions. There are things that should never have been buried, Caleb. Secrets that need to come to light. His eyes darted toward Lily. She's the key. Caleb shook his head, confusion mixing with fear. What do you mean? What secrets? Everything you think you know is a lie, his grandfather said, voice fraught with urgency. They've all been pawns in a game you don't fully understand. He's lying. Hugo's shout thundered through the wreckage, his presence almost comical against the man's dark gravitas. She's just a nobody. But before Caleb could react, a blinding flash erupted from within, illuminating the shadows. A scream burst forth. Lily staggered back, clutching her head, eyes wide with horror. No, not again. Caleb felt another wave of shock rhythmically pulse through the barn. It was as if the ground shook with revelation. What do you mean, again? Tell him the truth, Lily, his grandfather urged, desperation lacing his voice. You have to, before it's too late. Everything spiraled as Caleb lost grip on sanity. What could be worse than this nightmare? What truth could shatter everything he believed? The air thickened with dread, unsaid secrets pressing in around him. He felt the heaviness of fate closing in, and all he could think was, who could he trust now? As the storm raged outside, the real tempest brewed behind buried truths, and Caleb stood at the edge of revelation, heart racing, desperate for answers that would change everything they knew. Caleb's heart raced wildly as he knelt beside Ethan, the weight of horror crashing down on him. He could scarcely breathe, feeling the warmth of his brother's blood seeping through his hands, staining the ground. Ethan, hold on, please. His voice trembled, thick with panic. But as he looked up, every face in the barn was frozen, fear etched across their features. Lightning flashed again, casting eerie shadows of confusion and dread. Caleb! Lily's voice sliced through the chaos, and he turned as if pulled by an unseen thread. You have to stop this. Her eyes were wide, pleading, and sparking with something unnameable. But Caleb's thoughts raced. What did she mean? He opened his mouth to ask, but before he could form the words, the atmosphere shifted, the air thick with an impending storm that wasn't just outside. Don't let her deceive you. Hugo's voice was sharp, slicing through the tension, but something deeper, darker was churning beneath the surface, and that's when it happened. A loud crash echoed from the far side of the barn, making everyone jump. Caleb instinctively turned, only to see a shadowy figure emerge from the debris. Something about the man felt familiar. It was like looking into a mirror that reflected an altered past. What the hell? Caleb gasped, his mind spinning as the room fell silent. His grandfather had spoken about family, secrets, but now? Dad? Caleb stuttered, disbelief coursing through him. Is that you? The man stepped into the light, smooth skin and a smile that pinched Caleb's gut. It's time, son, he said softly, causing no one to breathe. Everything you thought you knew about our family, it's wrong. Murmurs rippled through the room. Caleb's chest tightened. What do you mean? Dad, you're supposed to be dead? He shrugged, his nonchalance only enhancing the dread. Death doesn't end the story, Caleb. It just changes the chapters. Suddenly, Ethan gasped, the sound a knife to Caleb's heart. This isn't real, right? You're not? But there was a flicker in his father's eyes, something almost unholy. No, Ethan. You don't understand, he hissed. Caleb, you're not just a victim. You're a player in a game of power far beyond us. What are you talking about? Caleb shouted, panic rising. What game? Stop! But before he could react, the air around them shifted. Bright bursts of light flared, blinding and powerful. A sudden roar echoed from above, drowning out their voices as the barn shook. What is happening? Get down! Sarah screamed. Throwing herself over Lily and the kids, Just as the roof began to splinter, the barn erupted in chaos. With a deafening crack, a beam toppled, slamming down toward Caleb and Ethan. Everything around them blurred, noise swallowed by the shock of the moment. "Run!" Caleb shouted, pulling Ethan to his feet. But before they could escape, the wooden structure splintered further, and the ground gave way beneath them. Caleb felt the earth drop, everything tipping into darkness. In that instant of freefall, an icy grip reached out for Caleb, wrapping around his heart like a vice. The darkness surged, and all he could feel was the pull of wrath and grief. Then a single word echoed through the void, sending icy chills down his spine. Truth. And just as quickly as it began, the world around him warped. He fell into a void of memories, faces flashing before him, every ghost from the past, every choice, every lie. When he came crashing back into reality, he didn't recognize where he was anymore. He was no longer in the barn. Sounds of laughter and chaos rippled through the air, but they felt distant, layered, like a scene from another life. "Caleb!" A screaming voice jolted him back, pulling him from the edges of confusion. It was Lily, frantic and breathless, her face streaked with mud and rain. "You have to wake up!" Wake up? Caleb looked around, confused. Where was the barn, the storm, the arguments? All around him were other people, faces familiar yet foreign. They looked at him with eyes full of pity and fear, and Caleb's stomach lurched. What did I miss? The truth twisted deeper, awakening new fears. A shadow loomed, one Caleb knew, but what he didn't understand was how everything had changed in a heartbeat, leaving him staggering over secrets that had shattered his past, and forging a new nightmare of uncertain reality waiting to ensnare him again. "Tell me," he shouted, his voice breaking as panic surged once more. "What's going on?" But the echoes of laughter faded, leaving Caleb teetering on the edge of understanding, fear tightening around him. And with that, the night hung heavy with mysteries still waiting to unravel. Caleb's world spun as he blinked, trying to make sense of the chaotic scene unfolding before him. Ethan lay on the ground, a body in shock. The specters of Sarah and Hugo loomed over him like storm clouds, darkness swirling amidst a storm that raged both inside and outside the barn. He could scarcely focus, each heartbeat echoing the desperation clawing at him. Then Lily's voice cut through the tension, sharp and filled with urgency. "Caleb, we need." With a jerking motion, he turned his head, but before he could react, the room erupted. The barn groaned, boards creaking ominously above, as if the very structure was alive, tired of holding so many secrets. And then it happened. A blinding flash of light ricocheted through the shadows, illuminating everything in a harsh brilliance. The moment froze. Caleb gasped. The figure of his grandfather stood solid, unwavering against the pulse of light. But then, almost imperceptibly, everything shifted in a way that made his heart skip. "Caleb, I found something!" His grandfather's voice rang out, suddenly sharp and filled with an urgency that pulled the air taut. And before he could finish, the ground shook violently. A crack sliced through the barn walls, a deep resonating sound that echoed like thunder. Caleb barely had time to react before the lights flickered and went out, plunging them into darkness again. He stumbled, disoriented, and suddenly the sense of dread. "Get back!" he shouted, instinctively shielding Lily and the kids. But his body froze as an unexpected noise sliced through the chaos surrounding them. A woman's voice, familiar but haunting, echoed in the darkness. "You thought you could keep this from me?" Caleb's heart plummeted. That voice, it couldn't be. "Mom?" he whispered, his chest tightening around the syllables. He felt the air rush out of him, and the pit deepened within. "Sarah, I warned you there are consequences." And in that moment, the world crashed as Caleb caught a glimpse of who it was. a woman stepped through the shadows, her features finally illuminated by lightning striking nearby. But it wasn't just Sarah. It was his mother again. Confusion swelled. "You shouldn't be here!" Caleb shouted, the urgency gripping him like vice. "Why are you here?" Ethan gasped weakly from the floor, disbelief lacing through his every word. The room felt electric, tension so thick you could cut it. "I came to save you," she cried, eyes wild with panic. "But you vanished." Caleb stumbled, seeking answers, each revelation twisting raw emotions, fresh through the wounds of his heart. "How? Why?" "No time," she shouted, panic surging. "You have to listen." But before she could continue, another crash shook the barn, and for a fraction of a second, time froze. And then everything exploded. A massive beam above them shattered, raining heavy splinters down like lethal rain. Caleb yelled, throwing himself over Lily and the children. In the chaos, it happened. The vision of reality warped. In a blinding rush, Caleb saw fragments of memories flash around him. Faces, shadows, moments long locked away. All tangled with a single truth. Lies, all of it, he gasped, realization crashing over him, reshaping everything. A loud, piercing scream echoed through the barn, ripping through the fog like glass shattering. It was Lily, falling to the ground, blood streaming from her hand, a deep wound carved into flesh. "Caleb," she cried, voice thick with pain. Caleb's world tilted. "No!" His heart raced as he knelt beside her, hands trembling. What happened? But amid the chaos, a figure moved slowly toward them, triumphant and almost ethereal. "You've unleashed what couldn't be contained, my dear Caleb." It was Hugo, but something felt different about him. Powerful, almost sinister in the light of the storm, and with a chilling smile. He revealed a hidden truth, a truth that changed everything in an instant. You were never just a victim, Caleb. This was always part of your destiny. Caleb's breath caught in his throat. Every secret, every lie was catching fire around him. The night pressed in, filled with shadows of unseen horrors, as 12 years of illusions crumbled. A nightmare reshaped into reality, leaving a gaping wound of uncertainty in its wake. What had they all missed? What other truths lay buried in darkness? He felt the ground shift beneath him, just like the secrets of his family. And in those harrowing moments, filled with betrayal and despair, it became clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. Caleb's eyes strayed from Hugo, whose smile twisted with evil glee, toward Lily. Blood trickled from her hand, soaking the ground beneath her, and in that moment the world felt impossibly heavy. Every breath was steeped in the weight of fear and dread. "Lily, hold on!" Panic ripped through him. He raked his hands over her wound, feeling the warmth seep through his fingers. She gasped, her eyes barely focusing on him. The pulse of life in her gaze flickered, and the tightness in his chest tightened even more. "It's not just the knife, it's—" But before she could say another word, a deafening crack echoed above, shaking the barn's foundations again. Caleb barely had time to register the warning when a shadow lunged past him, diving toward Hugo, and in a flash of terror, he realized it was Ethan. "Get away from her!" Ethan yelled, a barbaric roar that drowned out the storm. Caleb felt the air shift. They collided in chaos, Ethan pushing Hugo, who stumbled back, a flicker of fear crossing his face. But as Ethan rushed forward, trying to corner him, the room spiraled into confusion. "Ethan, no!" Caleb shouted, panic surging through him. But then the unexpected happened. As Ethan collided with Hugo, a blinding light erupted, spilling across the room like liquid fire. Caleb stumbled back, shielding his eyes. When the blaze cleared, his heart stopped. In place of Hugo stood a woman cloaked in shimmering light. Her face was obscured for a moment before she stepped forward, revealing the familiar lines of his mother's face. "What, Mom?" Caleb's voice trembled, confusion crashing over him like a wave. "Sarah?" His grandfather's voice was a fragile whisper, the shock making his knees buckle. Caleb looked back at Lily, whose eyes widened, realization dawning. "No, it can't be." "That's right," Sarah said, her voice echoing with power. "I've been here all along." She flicked her wrist, and the chaos that swirled around the room seemed to still. "Caleb, I had to protect you. You don't grasp the true danger." "Protect me?" he scoffed, disbelief fuel surging through him. "This? After all these years, you return for this? Listen!" Sarah's voice sharpened, slicing through Caleb's anger. "You have to know what's at stake. This isn't just about family. It's about legacy, about what's coming for our bloodline." "What bloodline? What are you talking about?" The storm outside roared, fists of thunder beating against the barn, echoing the turmoil within. "Caleb." She took a step closer, glowing with an intensity that mesmerized him. "We are destined to govern a power hidden deep within our family. When you're ready to accept it, you will learn about the darkness we've kept at bay." He shook his head, the world tilting again. Everything began unraveling. The truth was a tangled web, hiding monsters he never understood. "Enough of this," Hugo snapped, charging again, this time with a speed that took Caleb by surprise. But Sarah raised the hand, and a wave of energy shot forth, slamming him into the barn wall. The impact echoed, the man collapsing, but not before Caleb caught a flash of fear etched on Hugo's face, a hint of something Caleb didn't recognize, something buried deep. Lily, now pale and trembling, gripped Caleb's arm. "You can't trust her," she gasped, her voice shaky. "There's something she's not telling you." And then it hit him. The world spun as pieces clicked into place. "What else don't I know?" he yelled, desperation lacing his words. He couldn't breathe. He needed the truth. The weight of his family's history bore down like the storm above. As the lightning split the sky, a scream echoed through his thoughts, a piercing clarity. "You are not just a pawn, Caleb. You are, and always have been, the key," his mother declared, the final stroke that broke the dam within him. Heart racing, he staggered back, breathless, engulfed in a swallowing darkness. "No!" he yelled, every ounce of denial crashing down around him. Echoes of betrayal danced in the shadows, and he felt the ground shift at his feet. The night was a shroud pulling tighter, and the storm around them symbolized the tempest brewing within. Nothing made sense. Every truth seemed a lie. As Caleb stood on the brink of revelation, a realization crashed over him like the thunder outside. What am I? The question hung heavy, and Caleb braced himself for the answer, knowing it would transform everything he ever believed. Caleb's heart pounded like a drum as he faced the truth swirling around him. What am I? He repeated, desperation clawing his throat. The air crackled with tension, shadows of twisted secrets hovering over them like storm clouds. Your legacy, Sarah began, stepping closer, her voice a mix of urgency and compassion. It's time to embrace who you really are, Caleb. You're more than just a man. You're a guardian, a key to something that can't stay hidden anymore. Caleb's mind raced. Whatever did that mean? The storm outside roared, echoing the chaos within him, and the room pulsed with fear, a raw energy thrumming through the air. No, I won't be a pawn, Ethan grunted, struggling to rise, but his face twisted in pain. Caleb, help me! He glanced at his brother, torn between the weight of responsibility and the urgent demands of the moment. He could hardly breathe. Stay down, Ethan! Hugo snarled from the remnants in the corner, regaining his footing. This whole family is built on lies. You think you're protecting each other, but you're just keeping the darkness alive. Caleb shook his head, fists clenched. I won't let you do this anymore. His voice cracked like the thunder raging outside as adrenaline surged through him, giving him clarity amidst the chaos. Then don't, Sarah's command pierced the air, and suddenly she flared with a brilliant light, focusing on Caleb. Trust your instincts. Use your power. A rush of energy pulsed through Caleb, igniting every nerve. Memories flooded his mind, glimpses of past fears, lost friendships, every time he felt alone. It all swirled together, igniting an ember of hope within him. You want to play games, Hugo? Then let's play. With a fierce roar, Caleb lunged at Hugo, the ground vibrating beneath them. Eerie whispers hugged his mind, but he focused all his will. Hugo flinched, eyes wide with surprise, and Caleb wouldn't let this moment slip away. The figure of his father appeared in his memory, urging him on. Fight for your family. The collision shook the barn to its core. A wild light enveloped them. A collision of the past and present. The weight of years pressed down on Hugo, who stumbled back, trying to pull away the darkness that threatened to swallow him. But another scream shattered the tension. It was Lily, struggling to her feet, blood still pooling from her hand. Caleb, help! He felt a rush. Every ounce of love surged forward as he turned back to her. Lily! In that moment, everything stood still. Despite the chaos, despite the darkness, they shared a connection that transcended fear. Pure, unstoppable strength. Believe in us, she cried, gripping his arm, and in that moment, the power surged like electric currents flowing through them. Caleb took a step closer, sunlight breaking through the storm clouds swirling outside. I'm not afraid anymore. As if the words unlocked something buried, a blinding light enveloped the barn. Shadows dissolved like mist under the sun. Hugo shrieked, realizing the tide had turned against him. With one last push, each member of the family united in their shared energy, and together they forced Hugo back, throwing him into the chaos of his own making. Light enveloped him, and in a final flash, he vanished, consumed by the very darkness he wielded. The barn fell silent, the storm outside finally beginning to subside. Caleb turned around, eyes wide as he looked at Sarah, Ethan, and Lily. Everyone was breathing, alive and whole. The sacred bond between them pulsed in the air. But the truth loomed over them, dripping with unresolved mysteries. What happens next? He asked, weary but determined. Sarah smiled softly, her eyes shimmering but filled with a heaviness of knowing. Together we face what comes. The darkness may be gone, but the past hasn't been fully unraveled. Caleb nodded, heart racing, both terrified and hopeful. This was just the beginning. We'll figure it out together. And as they stepped out of the barn, the first rays of dawn peeked through the clouds, a glimmer of hope shining brighter than all the storms they had endured. The night had held chaos, but the day promised something new. But the question lingered, what secrets would find them next? And now, dear friends, this is the moment to show your support. You must subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that are coming your way. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. It helps bring more stories to you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What do you think awaits Caleb and his family? And don't wait one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know how it all ends. Your engagement, M.